Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we are back on the Frankenhauler and continuing on the lower end rust panels. Alright guys, welcome back, and those who were watching previously will have seen that this is the Frankenhauler, my 1954 F600 truck that I am putting onto a Toyota Coaster bus chassis. If you missed the last episode, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up, and like always, please do the things like and comment and all that sort of stuff. It all helps out that mysterious algorithm. So yes. Moving forward, I actually have the Frankenhauler off of the hoist. I'm sort of keeping the Ferrari over here while I'm still sorting out things with the steering. So we're going to work on the Frankenhauler on the ground here, and I might sort of look at tipping it over and getting in there and getting some of this further rust repaired. So let's dig in. Alright, so last week you saw that I started work on this bottom section of the truck, and as you saw, I've got the rust repair panels to fill in all the external stuff, but internally is where I need to start. And as you can see here, there are lots of layers of rusted metal that is all sort of stuck together, and it's just a mess. So I need to work out a plan on how to make all these bits. Now, this panel here, I can actually buy, but it's just this tiny little bottom corner, so I'm gonna make it. It's just a matter of unpicking a bunch of this stuff and and try and build it back up again. So what I think I might do is take a bit of a template and work out the rough shapes I need, and then start cutting this off and seeing what I can do about remaking it. All right, so now I've cleaned this up a bit, I can sort of see what's going on in here, and yeah, it doesn't make it any easier. None of this looks really good. You can see that there is multiple layers here of the metal that's sort of been wedged together and rusted inside over the years, and it's just a mess. So, and then over this side, you can sort of see that there is a weird sort of folded piece of metal here, and it just seems like the design of this was not that great when they started. So I want to try and clean this up, make it a little bit simpler and a little bit stronger and nicer than what it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making a bit of a template of this piece here, and basically templates of the shapes that I need, and go from there. All right, so you can see here that now I've cleaned it up a little bit. There is a whole lot of mess going on. It's a bit of an odd way that they've sort of constructed this. There's this weird tab here that has got water and stuff underneath and rusts away, so I don't like the design of that. And around the back, it doesn't get any better, it's actually worse, where you've got multiple layers here where the water obviously seeps in, rusts inside, expands it all, and it just makes it this big horrible mess. So it's sort of complicated to work out how to remake this without pulling everything apart and starting again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some paper and the dirty finger technique to try and make up some templates to work out what I need to rebuild before I just cut it all away. So here, using the dirty finger technique, I have made a template of the corner, and then I can start cutting everything away and getting rid of a lot of the rust. Now I'm making a repair for the sill panel first, using some nice thick stock, and that's a relatively easy panel. And I'm trying to gradually pick away the rust in different layers, just so I know how it all goes together and what I need to do to remake it. All right, so after hacking a whole bunch of this out, I'm starting to sort of make some headway in this. So I used a bit of heavier 1.5 mil steel plate in here and sort of made a patch that goes in and ties in. It's a bit thicker than what was there, but I just wanted something a bit more solid down the bottom here. And I've started sort of gutting out the worst of the rust. Obviously there's still a whole bunch here that I need to rebuild, but I want to try and build this section now. And to do that, I think I need to make a wooden buck.
So here you can see I'm copying my template onto some old floorboards I had lying around. Give them a bit of sand and then copy the design onto a second floorboard so that I have two matching bucks.
All right, so a bunch of you are probably wondering what I was doing with some wood. And basically what I've got some old floorboards I had lying around, and I've made up some wooden bucks. Now, this is the shape of those templates I made earlier of the lower inner side of the door frame. And now I'm going to wedge some steel in between, and I'll show you how I get it into the right shape for making my repairs.
So you can see here that I actually screw in my piece of metal to the buck so that it is held in place and it can't slide around. And then I can start hammering very softly and slowly around the edge. I realised very quickly that doing it on the bench did not have enough force, so put it in the vise and it was much more effective. But you can see here by softly hammering together, I can sort of hammer out the wrinkles and actually end up shrinking the metal around the edges. The point I did trim because it's a little too much to shrink easily.
Okay, so that wooden buck works really well. So you can sort of see here, by using the buck and hammering slowly, I managed to fold this edge over, and it actually works to shrink the edge so that you can actually get it all going over. Because if you didn't use that buck, or and particularly you didn't be able to pin the top, it would end up buckling this front edge, because there's all this material that needs to curve around a corner. It squishes it together by hammering it slowly, and actually gives that that shape. So it works quite effectively. The only issues that I had was that I stupidly left the groove from the tongue and groove flooring in there, and that was a spot of weakness. And also, now that everything's sort of trimmed out of here and I don't have like 5 layers of metal in there, I'm not as happy with the shape, so I've refined the shape. We're going to cut out some more bucks, and this can go on the scrap, and we'll try again. All right, that piece is a much better fit. I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to start trimming up the excess and fit it into my spot. And then I'll remake this outer edge as well, and hopefully it'll all match in nicely. All right, well, there's another shape on the outside of this inner door skin bit. It sort of sits behind something like that. Obviously, it's going to be trimmed and joined, but it was much easier to make it in a second piece. And I have to pass on a huge thanks to the patrons who, with your support, can help me upgrading things like this. And I have now a foot-operated shrinker stretcher, which makes life so much easier, keeping my hands free to be able to maneuver. You can put a lot more sort of tension in the panel, and it's much easier to sort of be able to keep things consistent and sort of get a nice result with things like this. So thank you very much to all of you patrons. And now I need to start trimming these up and mounting them in.
So after cutting out and cleaning up the rusted section, I start trimming and adjusting. Then it's just a matter of tacking it in place, and I use a mixture of the MIG and the TIG here just because for some things the MIG is good, and for other things I still prefer the TIG. Welding from the back definitely helps keep the front face nice and clean.
All right, and now I have the shape, and all matches in and is nice and solid, much more solid than it was previously. You can sort of see a little bit of the welding slag behind there, but I don't have any of the overlap, so the water's not going to sit and just rust things out. That's all sort of open back there, and you can sort of see the back of the weld. So that is all nice and solid. Now we can move on, and I think we need to do the other side before we start putting in the rest of the rear.
So again, I'm trimming out the rusted section of the sill panel first and using that as the template to cut out my piece of 1.5mm steel plate. Just bend a simple fold in it. And my camera keeps cutting out, so it jumps to the end when I've welded it all in, and I'm just tidying it up.
All right, we have the second side sorted. Now I've got rust holes here and there's other rust holes. I'm going to sort that out later. What I want to do now is I've got to get the back end back into place. Now, I think I will replace this little corner here because I'm not happy with that. That's all a bit horrible. So we'll replace this and then we'll start looking at what we're going to do to reinforce the entire back end of the truck.
So my camera cut out again. I think it's full of metal shavings, but I fixed that little corner panel, as you can see, and now I'm putting in my 2-inch box section, which is basically the main structure of this cab, and marking and fitting it to suit. Clean it all up, get it ready for welding, and a bit of weld through primer underneath just to make sure that if any moisture ever gets in there, it's got a little bit to protect it, and just working my way along and stitch welding it onto the truck.
All right, so you can see I now have my structure all the way along the back. Now I painted inside everything with some weld through primer, and this is now my structural member for basically the back edge of the truck. But as you can see, it's still flimsy because it needs to be tied into the rest of the body, and that is where these internal braces come from. So these go up in here, something like that. They need to now be trimmed and welded into place. So we've got the back edge of the truck all nice and solid and triangulated. So let's start cleaning these up and trimming them to fit.
So to fit these panels, there is a lot of cutting and trimming. You can see I used the jack to actually sort of jack up the rear of the floor just to get it all sitting in the right location before I start tacking it in. A lot of checking and double checking and checking again, and then I can weld it in solidly.
All right, so this piece has taken a lot of trimming to sort of get it to roughly fit in place, and I still need to sort of press it in. The rough lines is, this is to line up on top of that box. That is, I can see that's already lined up for that, as there was already a 2-inch sort of box section in there previously. And you've got this cutout here, which also lines up with the bottom flange that I've got. And I've been double checking And I've been double checking with the rust repair panel that I have there. So obviously this is going to sit over the top. You can see that they're not sort of finished totally, even the corners. So you see in this rust repair panel, it's not perfect all the way through because these things aren't consistently built. So it's a matter of tweaking and pressing it and making it all work. Okay, so I've welded in this entire panel, and now that it's all welded in, I've realized that this lip here drops down. So I'm not sure if it shows up well on camera, but this line along here should stay steady, and this drops down, which is now interfering with the inner lip of the rear corner panel. So I could cut this off and start again, but I think the easier way is going to be just to hammer and dolly out that lip and get it right. This whole thing, because there was so little left, it's very difficult to get everything in the perfect spot, and the reproduction panels are not always perfect anyway. All right, I briefly considered trying to hammer and dolly it, and it was very solid. It was much easier to cut and manipulate it, re-weld it, and now we have a nice straight line in the bottom there so that my patch panel will go on. So time to move over to the other side. All right, so now I have both sides of the inner structure on, and now it is just so super solid. Everything has triangulated the entire structure and has actually added so much rigidity. I mean, you can see this is really flimsy, but this whole lower structure is solid with the whole cab. It's actually the most solid part of the cab now. So the next thing is to start getting the outer corners mounted on. All right, so you can see I have started putting this into place. Now I've been scoring on the back, and I only cut the panel sort of pretty close to the right spot around here, but then I've left it long on the inside now so that I can start sort of getting an idea where it needs to line up. But you can already see that this is skewed out, so it does need to come around more and sort of lift up more in the back. And that is what I'm doing now, is starting to tweak and massage and get it sitting in the right spot so then I can score, cut and tack. All right, so this side I've got to fit reasonably well, and I've cleaned it all up. It still takes a lot of hammering and tweaking. All of these rust repair panels, just like on the Alpha, just like every one of them, they're never 100% perfect, so it does take a little bit to get them to match what was done, 70 years ago. I'm going to go around the edge now with this air punch, and what this will do is it'll put holes all the way in that I can plug weld onto the base. So get everything ready, and we'll just tack this in place and see if we can get a semi-decent alignment on this panel.
So I use a couple of self-tapping screws to hold it into place, and then I go through and start tack welding it on. Still trimming and tack welding as I go just to get that perfect fit.
All right, so I managed to get that all tacked on, sitting very, very nicely. Now this little groove on the reproduction panel is a little bit shallower, so I haven't actually joined it yet. There's a bit of a step there at the moment, but I can sort of hammer that out with the hammer and dolly and get that all nice and neat. I'll worry about that later. It's more that the location is correct and this tapered end is good. And as I said, once I sort of hammer and dolly this in and blend it out, you won't notice. But at the moment, I just want to tack everything on so that it is in the correct spot. So as for the other side, now, from looking from this angle, I've sort of got it clamped in place and it's sitting reasonably well there. I mean, it's sort of close enough to where it needs to be. But if you come around the side, it's way off and it's holding a really odd shape. And I think ultimately to get it to sit where I want, I might have to cut it in half and get it to relax and get to sit the way I need it, that it will work on this chassis. So we have one cab corner on, the other one still needs a fair bit of work to get it to fit exactly the way I want it. And I just have run out of time this week, so this is going to have to wait until next time. As you can see, I'm going to have to fill in this center panel as well and make the grooves all match in and all the rest of it. That's another challenge that I will tackle next time. But for now, I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, in 1901, after the Detroit Automobile Company folded, Henry Ford still wanted to pursue his dream of providing an affordable vehicle for the masses. He realised that automobile races generated widespread publicity for brands because, of course, they demonstrated the engineers' superior designs. As such, Ford decided to build a car and to enter a sweepstakes race at a 1-mile oval racetrack in Detroit. The car Ford built was technologically advanced for its time, with an early form of fuel injection and handmade porcelain insulated spark coils, which were a forerunner of the modern-day spark plug. The 26 horsepower car set the world record, being recorded at 72 miles per hour over a half mile, beating the previous record of 65.79 miles per hour. On the 10th of October 1901, Henry Ford lined up with his mechanical assistant against Henry Winton of Cleveland. Henry Winton was the favourite. He was the top racer in the country at the time. The 10-lap race began, and 3 laps in, Winton had gained a huge lead while Ford was still getting to grips with the car. By the 6th lap, Ford had all but caught up, making huge time, particularly on the straights, while Winton's car started experiencing mechanical difficulties, blowing huge clouds of smoke. Ford took the lead on the 8th lap and went on to win his first and only race.
All right, we're getting there. Slow and steady wins the race with this stuff. These panels are always a little bit of a challenge to try and get everything to line up with what the factory had built, but we'll get there.
Yep, we'll save that for another week of more rust filling, because can you ever have too much?
Plenty to go. And back on our Ferrari next week.
Yes. Yay, like and subscribe, let Jeff know what you think, and leave comments, Patreon if you want to help us out. And of course, have a great week, everyone.
Yeah.
See you guys soon.
See you next week.
Bye.
See you guys.
Generated widespread publicity for a brand as they demonstrated the engineers' superior designs. And to enter a sweepstakes race. The car Ford built was the 26 horse. Winton was one of the top racers in the country and was a favourite.
Was the top.